Hi everyone, hope this finds you well. So for those of you that tune in for this every single month, this is obviously our Zoopla UK House Price Index report. For those of you that are watching this for the first time, typically these reports are done a month in lieu. So even though this report has been published at the end of September, this report actually relates to all the figures up until the end of August 2021. But it's a great insight to where the market is, the way that it's going. And in this report, it's not just about the house price increases, it's also about the potential cliff edge of the stamp duty, because we've seen that the stamp duty has had tapered relief, ending partly in June and, of course, at the end of September. So it's a good gauge of how things are going and what kind of sales have been agreed up until the end of those months. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So first of all, house price increase. We're looking year on year, 6.1% increase of the current UK house price growth. Again, that's well over what we're looking at normally at this time of the year. Importantly as well, the demand for homes is dramatically up. We're looking at 19% year on year as well. So in comparison to 2020, and it is to be noted that we were actually out of the lockdown by that point, we are still 19% up in demand for homes year on year. And of course, the flow of new supply is down 5%, as you can see here. Importantly, that supply will gradually level out. The reason why we've seen such a dip in supply is, first of all, the construction industry didn't know what it was doing when the first lockdown took place in March 2020. And then, of course, people didn't want to put their homes on the market due to, obviously, restrictions. They didn't want to show people around their house. So that's why the flow of new supply have been pretty restricted. But that over the next few months, especially heading into 2022, that will actually start to even out. And I expect the flow of new supply to be in positive territory as we reach the first quarter of next year. However, let's talk about this cliff edge. There was big talk about cliff edge in terms of the stamp duty and the decrease in regards to the potential prices. I didn't see that happening. And again, it's been shown here that it actually hasn't taken place at all. The reason why I never saw that taking place was for two main reasons. First of all, is it's still very, very cheap to borrow money. So when it's cheap to borrow money, you tend to find that people still plow on and get mortgages. The second thing is, in terms of the actual demand for property, the average house price at 235,000, what you're actually saving in stamp duty is a few £1,000s. It's not going to put you off buying. You only really saved the 15,000 when you headed towards the £500,000 mark, but that is not the average house price. So that's why I didn't foresee it dipping as much as a lot of experts did. So the reality is there is no sign of a cliff edge in demand at the ending of the tapered stamp duty holiday in June and September. Demand remains higher typically for this time of year. And of course, as we've seen, the imbalance between demand and supply is continuing to put upward pressure on the pricing. The market, again, and we're noticing this within the company, things are selling really quick. We did a few launches recently, and typically, we've got a launch which is 18 months away from being completed. We might sort of, stagger through that over 9 to 10 months. We've sold out the whole development within 4-month period. So typically we're seeing a real change in terms of the speed that buyers want to progress. And actually, London's picked up. London, which has been a bit of a struggle, it's picked up, especially as offices have reopened, global travel's resumed, and of course, people now need to start renting in London and potentially buying into London as people get used to the reality that they're actually got to go back to work. So in terms of moving forward as well, what we do expect is that, as I said, the demand to keep extremely high where it's at. But actually, the flow of supply, I do expect that to go into positive territory. And the stock of homes for sale, I see that although it's negative 28.1% at the moment, I do see that pushing into the positive territory as well. In terms of where things are taking place and where things are happening, where's hot in the UK at the moment? Well, Wales has been recording the highest level of price growth at 9.8% as a whole, followed by Northern Ireland, northwest of England at +8%. However, if we look at the actual cities in question, you can actually see that the major cities that are increasing are the same cities that have been doing it for the last sort of 6 to 12 months. That's Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield. Liverpool is absolutely flying at the moment, 9.8%. You've got 8.1% in Manchester and obviously 7.6% in Sheffield again. So these kind of areas are really pushing on. We've been advocating Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, all of those areas for the last decade nearly. And again, it's really proving beneficial to those clients who got in 6-7 years ago. They're now really lapping up the rewards. In terms of London as well, London actually average values are up 2.2% on the year. It's still below where the inflation mark is, but again, we are still increasing and we're starting to get back to those kind of levels. I do see London rebounding, nowhere near what obviously Liverpool and Manchester and Sheffield are doing, but I do see it starting to push on as we start to see things get back to a little bit of normality. In terms of here, what we can see is that the buyer trend is up 14% over the last month in London, 25% rise in demand for houses across London, 6% rise in demand for flats. I see that what will happen over the next 6 months as well is house prices, although they're going to increase, I see a more of demand for flats, as especially I'm noticing it in Canary Wharf. We've got a lot more demand for the Canary Wharf type areas as people are returning to normality. And as I say, people are going back to the offices. Now, heading down to this cliff edge, this tapered stamp duty holiday, a lot of people said that there's going to be huge crashes. Well, let's be realistic. They said there's going to be a huge crash after the lockdown. There wasn't. They then said there's going to be a huge crash after the stamp duty relief was ended. There isn't. So again, a lot of these so-called experts are getting it wrong time and time again. And we keep saying, look at the fundamentals, the interest rates. Where are they? They're extremely low. Therefore, we don't foresee that any kind of change in the market at the moment. However, please be aware that inflation is high. As inflation gets hotter and hotter, they will have to increase those interest rates. And if they do, that's where we're going to start to see the potential downturn in the market, or a slowdown at the very least. Because when interest rates go up, that's where mortgages become a lot more expensive for obvious reasons. However, we can see here in terms of when June ended, stamp duty, and in terms of when September ended, we haven't seen too much of a dip. As we head down to the chart here, we can see a little bit of activity decreasing as we head towards we head to May, to the 3-month average completion, and again from July to September. But the dip kind of took place in the first 3 months. That's when the main taper relief kicked in. But we can see here that actually it's not changed in the last 3 months at all. So we really don't see that the end of stamp duty holiday from up to the 30th of September having an impact whatsoever. And of course, we then come down to the speed that things are selling. As we mentioned, the average time to sell is just 27 days, which is unbelievably quick. Agents such as ourselves, to be honest, we're really reaping the rewards here. But we also have to be aware and let clients know that just make sure that the affordability is there when they start to increase the interest rates, as we do foresee over the next sort of 12 to 18 months or so. But importantly, let's head right down to the outlook as well. The outlook for us is exactly like Zoopla's got here. We don't actually see the stamp duty having any major impact whatsoever. The fact is that the balancing act will come from what happens after the government support for the economy via furlough. Again, I don't really see that changing dramatically. We are constantly recruiting in our own company, and we find it tough to recruit. The reality is that in terms of the jobs that are out there, there's jobs, but people are still in employment. Companies have had it pretty good over the last 12 months. They've been not only making great money, they've been saving on their outlay due to furlough schemes and due to bounce back loans and everything that these companies have been getting. So the reality is that I really don't foresee that there's going to be too many unemployed after the end of this particular furlough. And then we sort of head down to where is performing. It's the same cities. We've got Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, Belfast, Nottingham. We can even see Aberdeen, which is normally negative, is actually even made 0.2% year on year over the last sort of 12 months. So it's still the same, guys. Liverpool, Manchester, Sheffield, Belfast, Nottingham. Those kind of cities are where your growth is. Those kind of cities is where your income is. But again, don't discount London now. Let's look at those areas that are half hour, 40 minutes from London, because again, that for me is the key. That for me is what's going to start to push forward over the next 12 months as people get back to the cities and get back to work. Well, take care, everyone. Hope you've had a great week and good rest of the week. And anything that you need from our end, don't hesitate to give us a call.